So now joining us at Rebel headquarters, James Elam. He's running for local office in West Virginia. Hey James, how you doing, brother?
Hi Cenk, how are you, man?
Good, good. So we've had mostly national candidates, but you're a local candidate. So first, before we get into what office you're running for, where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born outside of Chicago in Evanston, Illinois. Both of my parents were sailors in the U.S. Navy, and we did some moving around. I spent a lot of time growing up outside of Memphis and Collierville, Tennessee. And then about 2007, I lived outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And in 2012, I finally came to Charleston, West Virginia, and I've been here ever since. I absolutely love it.
All right, well, bless your heart for loving Charleston, West Virginia. So what did you do in Charleston as a profession?
Well, in Charleston, actually outside of Charleston, I lived outside of Clarksburg for about a year, where I spent after college serving as a corrections officer in the State Division of Corrections, which was actually the main reason why I decided to run as a Democrat, because I realized in West Virginia we were clogging our jails and prisons with nonviolent offenders, specifically nonviolent drug offenders, and a lot of which relating to cannabis, which I think should be legalized throughout the entire country. So I really want to commend those folks over in California for getting recreational marijuana.
Okay, so now West Virginia is a little bit different, certainly than California and arguably the rest of the country.
Definitely.
So even earlier today on the Young Turks, we did the story about how black people are arrested at 3.7 times the rate of white people for marijuana. But West Virginia doesn't have a lot of black folks. So in the prisons, was it poor white people who were largely being arrested for marijuana?
Typically, and also not even just marijuana arrests. As you know, West Virginia has the highest rate of opioid drug overdose deaths in the country due to drug overdose, and cities like Huntington are especially hit hard from heroin and other drugs. So that's another reason why, as a former correctional officer, my platform discusses releasing nonviolent drug offenders from incarceration so they can receive better rehabilitative care and we can save the taxpayers money. And as a former officer myself, I've supervised inmates personally. And as you've seen recently, our governor has just declared a state of emergency because we don't have enough officers to even work in our jails or in our prisons. So they're about to send in the National Guard, and we're paying officers in the prison $24,000 a year. I mean, it's criminal.
So what was the salary you made as a corrections officer?
My fiscal year, I honed in around $22,000. That was working 60 hours a week, 20 hours of overtime every week. And the only thing I got from Governor Justice, aside from him totally screwing the Democratic Party in West Virginia, was he sent all these officers a letter basically saying, I know you're overworked, you work long hours and for low pay, but thanks for what you're doing. And I'd like to see the governor down there in one of these understaffed jails or prisons and watching 48 inmates at a time and risking your life to keep people safe. And that's why I started to run. And I had a gigantic target on my back because I'm also the youngest openly gay candidate for the House of Delegates.
Yeah. So James, I want to stay on the salary for a second because
perfect.
Yeah, because we live in different worlds, and you might not have a sense of what's happening on the coasts and the elites definitely do not have a sense of what's happening to you or anybody in West Virginia, because the idea of working 60-hour a week and getting only $22,000 salary.
It's criminal, yeah.
It's unbelievable, it's unbelievable. And the guys on TV in New York and DC, they have no idea. They have no idea at all. So if you're in office,
that's all it was about right here.
And they pretend that they care about you guys. You guys are officers, right? And then do they care about you? $22,000 a year. So okay, then if you're in office, what would you do about that?
Well, that's why West Virginia is struggling. If you look, we have 500 vacancies for correctional officer positions statewide. And again, the reason for that is the tri-state area. There's no reason for an officer to want to stay in our jails and prisons, if they can go to Maryland and make, a couple extra $1,000, or hell, even in West Virginia, they could go to the federal system and make, upwards of $45,000 a year. So that's typically what happens. They either leave the state or they go to the federal system.
Right. So how can you fix it?
Well, that's another reason why I've always suggested releasing the nonviolent offenders at an earlier time. One, that's going to put our officers in a safer position. It's going to free up tax dollars. And again, that's a whole nother reason. These issues all kind of are interconnected. That's why I'm a believer in the legalization of marijuana, because if you look at the revenue that could be generated from that, we could pump a lot of that money back into operating our jails and prisons and our infrastructure, our education. We could really put that money back into the entire state in general.
So the links to help James is in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube, or right there if you're watching live, and then in the comment section on Facebook. So James, you're running for House of Delegates in West Virginia. So and as you mentioned, you're an openly gay candidate. Now, conventional wisdom on TV is you have no chance because of that in West Virginia.
Right.
So what say you about that?
Well, I would disagree. I mean, Cenk, as well as you know, it's 2018 and the tide has changed. And the LGBT community in our state, I'm going to keep fighting for them simply because we don't have any language on our hate crimes law that protects these people. And as a former officer myself, it was my job to keep people safe. You can be legally fired from your job or kicked out of your housing if you're openly gay. If the city you live in doesn't have a non-discrimination policy, we don't have any statewide protection that protects you and your employment and housing. And that's the same reason I've supported the Employment Housing Non-Discrimination Act. And every time the Democrats try to push it through the House or through the state legislature and the Senate, it always gets torn down because we have people on the Republican side that would rather waste time trying to sponsor religious freedom bills, which are basically just a license to discriminate, or they're trying to pass bathroom bills and totally, assault the transgender community. So, to anyone who's not going to vote for me because of my sexuality, I feel very bad for you. I've already lost your vote, and I'm sorry for that. But I know across the country that there's a lot of people that support the LGBT community, and I am proud to say here on your network that I am one of those people.
Right, and look, we had a trans individual win in Virginia, a southern state.
Danica Rome.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We had a lesbian mom, a 26-year-old woman who no one gave a chance to win in the middle of Oklahoma, right? You know why? Because people, I think, James, you're exactly right. People don't care about that anymore. You know what they care about? That you're gonna help them get a better wage. You're gonna help them get health care. You're gonna fight for them, right? And you're not gonna fight for the elites, and you're not gonna fight for the donors, you're gonna fight for them.
No, if you look on my Act Blue account, the smallest donation is $3. It's $3. I'm not asking for big money. I don't come from money. I don't have a fancy last name. If that's what you're looking for, you might as well not vote for me, because like I said, as a corrections officer, I made not even $23,000 a year. And I don't believe that money should have any type of influence in politics. If anyway, the people are better represented by people who understand that sometimes it's paycheck to paycheck. And we got people in West Virginia that are working 2, 3 jobs, barely putting food on the table. We're one of the most depressed states in the country. We have an addiction to opiates and prescription drugs that is uncanny to the rest of the nation. We have real issues that we need to be tackling here. And I feel like a lot of these people are just playing games with people's politics and indirectly playing games with the lives of everyday West Virginians.
I saw in your bio that you wanted to be a Methodist pastor at one point. And as I hear you preach it, I can see why. And don't sell your name short. There was a great Broncos kicker with your last name. Yes.
Well, they told me I couldn't do that, but here I am trying to spread the message that if you believe in a God, remember what it says in 1 John 4:8. If you don't know love, you don't know God, because God is love. And I think we're living in a current political time that is dynamic and unique. I have friends like Paula Swearigan who are trying to take back this state. and friends in the southern part of the state like Richard Ojeda, who's running for Congress, who's great on veterans issues and a giant friend to my community. So you know what? There's progressives in this state that are tired of it. And Donald Trump came out the other day and said that West Virginia was doing fantastically well. Well, I would argue, how are we doing fantastically well? He rallied this state by saying he was going to put miners back to work, and we're closing the mines down. If anything, if you want to ask about how we're going to put these guys back to work, we've already blown the tops of these mountains off. We should be farming cannabis on top of them and selling it in a dispensary, taxing it like alcohol. I mean, West Virginia has some of the best lands to be doing this at. I just don't see why we're not already doing it.
Yeah, I mentioned the Broncos earlier, giving Mile High a different meaning. But West Virginia's got a lot of good land. No reason not to put it to work. Yeah, let's get some jobs in there. Let's get some money in West Virginia.
Country roads.
That's right. That's right. All right, James Elam, running for local office in West Virginia. Check out the links below. And if you're in his neck of the woods or in his holler, go out and give him a holler. Volunteer, donate, do whatever you need to do.
Well, James, if I could just say one more thing, if we're almost done here, I just want to say my dad's a huge fan of the show, and I know he's tuning in outside of Janesville in Paul Ryan's district, and I just want to say go Randy Bryce for sure, and I want to say hello to my dad and thank you for tuning in. So
yep, Iron Stash is going to beat Paul Ryan, and that's going to be fantastic as well. He just became a Justice Democrat, so right. So that's great news all around. All right, James, go get him. Looking forward to the results on election night.